Welcome, welcome. This is the UDL Leadership, and we're going to be talking about professional learning and coaching. And this was a request. We've got quite a few requests at SETC to have a session like this. And so I'm super curious and excited to lead this one with you. And I know I've done some conferences with this topic, and I always end up learning more from the people in the group. So I'm excited to have you guys share with me as well. So I hope you are ready for a lot of chatting and networking with each other. I'm really looking forward to this session, and I know you guys will unmute yourself and jump right in as we get started. But first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Tracy Dabbs. I work for the Burlington Edison School District. Currently, I'm the coordinator of technology and innovation, and I also get to be the UDL district lead, which I'm super excited about. We're a medium-sized district, not quite 4,000 students, but we have we're almost at 50% language learners. Our main language is Hispanic families, and we're getting close to about 40% free and reduced. We have a pretty diverse school district, and lots of amazing teachers. We're just 20 minutes south of Bellingham on I-5, and we're just about an hour north of Seattle. So if you don't know where Burlington is, that's where we're at, right on the water up there. And I've been able to provide professional learning at my district for about 20 years now. I started in first and second grade classroom. And remember when they asked you, hey, will you be a coach for 1 year? Did you ever get that? And then 20 years later, you find yourself right still out of the classroom. But I do love every minute of it. It's amazing how much the planning and things that we do is very similar to what we did when we were teaching, right? The supporting our teachers is like supporting our students. There's a ton of overlap, and we'll be talking a lot about that as we talk about how to coach and how to provide professional learning with a UDL lens. So about 20 years with professional learning, and about 7 years ago, I found UDL, and everything changed for me with professional learning. It just completely shifted from sessions where I would make the one size fits all session, fill in the blank for whatever the item is, and then just, I know everyone will get this, right? And just finding that our teachers are exactly like our students. And so shifting all of my professional learning into a UDL lens has been an amazing learning experience, but would never change that. I mean, some of the ways that our professional learning has changed in Burlington has just been amazing, especially over the last 4 years. So I can't wait to share some of that with you. But I hope you got a chance to fill out the survey because I want to know who we have with us. So let's take a look at our survey results, see who's here. All right, great. We have some SPED folks, some coaches, some district leadership. Perfect. Love when we have a blend of different lenses. That can be super powerful. Wave at me if you're our SPED people and you got your camera on. Excellent. And then wave if you're a coach. Who are our coaches? So we have coach and SPED. Awesome. And district leadership. Excellent. Oh, so you guys are like everything. You get perfect. Excellent. All right. And I'm always curious about this one. I'm curious where people are in their UDL and inclusion journey. And this is fabulous. So we have across the spectrum. We have newbie. We have, and I always feel like a newbie, the more I know, the less I know, right? And then we have some people that are kind of in the middle of the road, have had a couple years under their belt. And then, oh, we got a couple experts that are going to help us along, right? Excellent. That is perfect. All right. Learning online can be exactly what we put into it, right? And delivering online, I know all of you have probably had a chance to do this, it can be really tricky to pull that engagement and pull people in with you. So I'm always curious what people share supports them when they're an online learner. So chance to reflect. We got a couple people, access to digital resources. That is a big one for me, and you're going to have access to these well after this course is over. Access to paper. Hopefully you got my email ahead of time where I shared if you wanted to print some things out to have access to, you got that one. We pretty much have a big playbook resource that has a bunch of our steps and things in it. So I really like to have paper too for some things. So So hopefully you got a chance to print that out if you need it tonight. And of course, if you need to print that out later as you see how these pieces go. And then, of course, like I said, I'm going to make sure you have access to these resources well after this session, because I keep my web resource I'm going to share with you that I shared with you already. I keep that one up. That's been up for several years now. All right, now what brought you to this course? Perfect. Dr. Scott. Who's Dr. Scott? Who put that one in there?
I did. I love UDL, so I was excited that was the title, but the invite just showed up on my calendar and he's one of my bosses, and so I came.
Yay, thank you, Dr. Scott. That's awesome. Like, who's that? How did that happen? That is so great. Oh, that's perfect. I love that. So maybe we'll thank Dr. Scott. You'll have to tell him if that was a good recommendation or not. Always trying to help teachers providing UDL and all learners. This is great. So wanting to just step up and be a leader, continue to learn and grow. I saw it in an email. Perfect email. Excited to learn more of how I can teach, how I can support teachers in implementing in their classrooms and not see it as another thing. That's perfect. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. That gives me a great perspective. And super powerful to see who's in the room. And for me, it's just like I do with our teachers, or if I'm going to a conference or a different session, right? Trying to find out who's there and how I can support them. So I think those learner surveys can be super powerful. All right, so our goals for our course, what we're going to be looking at are exploring some structures to support the development of professional learning plans that we want to either have in place or put in place. And of course, also coaching with a focus on UDL and inclusion. Now, you'll also see how a lot of this support and these structures could help with any kind of professional learning. So I'm hoping that's a big takeaway for you, that no matter what training or support you're providing for your staff, for your teachers, for your peers, that they can be created in this structure and actually should be created in this structure because it's what's best for learners. Um, but also, I'm going to be putting a ton of things on how you actually pull off professional learning that is about inclusion and UDL. So hopefully you'll see that parallel there, and we can talk about that as we keep working on this. And then, of course, I want you to have a chance to engage in collaborative conversations with your peers, because a lot of times we're the only person in our district or in our building that are trying this leadership work, and it can feel really isolating. You can really feel like you're by yourself. So I'm super hopeful that with this group, you're getting a chance to work with and connect with people that have that same goal you have. And oftentimes there's some other groups that I've done where I'll keep emailing that person. We've made this connection and we'll share things together, and hopefully you'll have some networking that can come from this. So I'm super hopeful about that. All right, so just for session one, and as you know, we have 6 sessions and they're going to be monthly sessions. So I love that you'll have some time to kind of digest things before we come back together. But just in this session one, we're going to do a bit of an overview of this, of what we're going to try to do. And I'm going to show you some of the materials that are attached. Hopefully give you a chance in a couple different breakouts to connect with other people in the group, learn how, and we can also learn how we can support each other in a group. And then we're going to try, and you'll see the framework, but we're going to try to begin stage 1 tonight. And there's 4 stages of pieces that we're going to be working through, but I want us to get a chance to jump into that first part. Okay, so first what we're going to do, and we have a pretty small group. Do we actually want to do breakouts? Thumbs up if we want to do breakouts, or do we just want to all stay together and get to know everybody? Does that sound okay? All right, let's do that. Perfect. So we're going to go around, and I'm just going to call out by my squares. Does that sound okay? So we'll have Karen, let's have you start. And just tell us a little bit about what you do, where you're from, what brought you to this course, where are you in your journey with
Uh,
UDL? You
I
go.
am the special education director for Wapato Public Schools, and Wapato is located near Yakima. And we are trying to move more towards inclusion, like everybody else, because it's what's best for kids. And that is sometimes a difficult journey. And so I've been looking at UDL for a long time, but I feel like I need more information so that I can help other people get started on their journeys as well.
That's perfect. Perfect. Michelle.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Waddell. I'm currently the Director of Assessment and Research for Everett Public Schools. I grew up in Yakima, Washington, though, so
Oh, yeah, come on, shout out.
I connect to you and your side. What brought me here? Like I said, I was invited to come. That being said, I'm new to my role as of July, and prior to this, I was the director of the LMS team. And one of the things that I'm working on is building a comprehensive assessment system and onboarding new tools, and I support all of the departments. So UDL connects to all of that with curriculum development and our assessments. Are we having variety in the types of assessments that we're using? Are we increasing the modes and the modalities? So, what am I looking forward to? Learning from all of you and seeing how this fits in all of the different hats that I wear along this journey.
So you support assessment, and are you doing LMS with this district too, or is that what you were doing previously?
I was the LMS director for 2 years prior to this, but we're onboarding a brand new SIS, a student information system and assessment module, and um, a new MTSS district-wide plan. So
Wow.
all of this interconnects because I'm working with departments to have common language across all types of assessment, and I can leverage UDL to ask my partners across the curriculum, what are the different ways that kids can demonstrate, or what are the different ways that they can access. In addition to that, we're increasing inclusion across our system. So as I partner with building leaders and my SPED department, how can I use this to help with that work?
And what is your student information system that you're going to?
We're moving from eSchools to Synergy.
Okay. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, actually, though, really nice to kind of do all those pieces at once so everything can just be connected and you're not doing piecemeal. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it's almost nice to just let's just do it.
Yes, and with the new
Nice.
Danielson, and it
Yeah.
just kind of lines up.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Julie.
Hi, I am not far from Michelle. I'm over in Lake Stevens, and
Hi.
I'm the special services coordinator. I'm a TOSA in our district. I'm the only special education TOSA in our district.
Oh,
There's just one of me. Um, and I am super excited to be here. Uh, our district, UDL, is really kind of new-ish in Lake Stevens. We have pockets of people who are really excited and doing it. But as we also are really trying to increase our inclusivity in our classes and our models. UDL is real, I mean, just to me that the answer, but it has a kind of in some of our circles a bum rap where I'm the
mm.
person who was like sometimes people are seeing like it's another thing or it's an initiative and just really trying to kind of get around that barrier of what it really is and how it's so good for all our kids in all our classrooms and particularly our kids with IEPs. This year in Lake Stevens, we've upped our co-teaching game and are partnering with
Oh.
the UW's Herring Center for some professional development this year, which is
Mhm.
awesome. But just any kind of strategies that I can have in my role supporting build district-wide PD for special educators or just individual teams or co-teaching partnerships. And one of my partners in crime is here today also. So I love partnering with her and hopefully together we can bring some good stuff to Lake Stevens from this. So thank you
Who's
for hosting,
absolutely who's your partner in crime?
Michelle Stanifer.
Oh, Michelle. I see. I kind of
Another,
saw a little smirk when you said that, so I
yeah,
was
right.
wondering if that was
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Welcome, welcome. Darlene.
Hi, I am an occupational therapist and a certified assistive technology specialist for South Kitsap School District. And I've been super interested in UDL for a really long time because as an OT, we kind of do that all the time.
Yeah, you do.
We're we're helping our teachers and our students access things in whatever way they can. And our district said we were going to move towards UDL, and all the teachers freaked out because just like somebody
Oh.
else commented, they think it's just one more thing when they don't realize they're actually doing a lot of it already. When you just put a label on it, though, then they're like, wait. So I love to learn as much as I can as the district shifts and helps teachers understand that we have a lot of capacity to help with kids to be included in whatever way they can. So I'm just here to learn and collaborate with people that are from different areas as well. So
Perfect. Perfect. Michelle S.
Hi, I'm Michelle Stanifer, also with the Lake Stevens School District. I'm the MTSS specialist. Everything that Julie said in regards to what we're doing across the district. But yeah, one thing I noticed is that there is some apprehension about learning more about UDL. We have a lot of changes that have been going on in my realm, which is ELA. For secondary with new curriculum adoption. So there can be some level of resistance to adding a new thing. So I wanted to maybe deepen my knowledge and know how to best support teachers with UDL practices and making it palatable so that there's greater access for our kiddos and seeing that their needs are met. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Kayla?
Hi, sorry. So my name's Kyla Wright, and I work for the Pasco School District, and I am a special education teacher, and my role is an education specialist. What brought me here is I did the UDL book study last year with you guys, and started my learning and knowledge of UDL. And same kind of thing, I think, across all of Washington is, we have a new MTSS model, and we're looking at UDL and inclusive practices. And so just understanding that better and bringing it to my teams and schools. And yeah, the apprehension is there, but like somebody mentioned, we do a lot of it already. It's just labeling it that freaks people out.
Does.
Something new, but it's not new. It's just changing some things that we already do to ensure that all students have access.
Nice. Perfect. Brianna?
Hi, sorry, trying to get this going.
No, you're all good. Sometimes it's like a click and then you click again.
Oh, 1 second. Okay.
There you are.
Hi. I am actually in a new role. I have been a one-on-one high needs parent educator for a few years now. And I switched into the role of restorative room, and I am in Ording, Washington for Ording Middle School. And restorative room for us is basically trying to mindset change the kiddos that are having behavioral issues or aren't able to be productive in class. So this is a first time class for me. I've actually never taken anything along this realm of information. So it's just kind of a new stepping stone and learning, and our district shared the opportunity to be able to enroll in taking some of these courses.
Excellent. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Joan.
Hi. I am from Ellensburg, Washington. So right here with Set C.
Yay.
I'm a special education teacher, and we don't have TOSAs or coaches or mentors or anything in my district. We were a part of the WABA group last year, the IPP program.
Yeah.
And, saying that we were going to move toward, teaching our teachers about UDL. And we kind of got started, but then with the loss of the WABA participation in IPP, that was a little bit put on hold. I'm not sure exactly where we stand now, but I also am part of IPP through WEA. So I want to also incorporate UDL strategies into the trainings that we just do all the time. And hopefully I eventually will have more impact in my own district.
I am sure you will. Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you for sharing. And Tim. There's Tim.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I work for the Lake Stevens School District, and I've had lots of titles there or positions. I'm basically a secondary math instructional coach, though, and I work with Michelle, and I work with Julie.
Yay. I saw him waving at you.
Yeah. And Michelle is responsible for me being here today.
It's all Michelle's fault. Way to go.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's perfect. Have you had much exposure to UDL? Have you?
Uh, some. I mean, I know basically about it.
Gotcha.
Michelle is my partner that's right next door to me in our offices, and so she's brought me into it. So yeah, sure,
Nice.
I understand some about it, but I'm math, and frankly, it doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't play well in math, but math teachers don't go to UDL.
Math teachers don't play well with UDL, but boy, it does play well with them.
Yeah, right, and you know, so I don't know. I need to understand more about it, I guess, to deal with the math people that I deal with.
Yes, I love that you're here because I actually, so I trained the high school, and the math department was the first department I coerced into being in my leadership team, and I have 3 of them now, and they love it. And they presented at a conference with me last week, and they are sold. But at the beginning, they told me, no way, Dabs. This doesn't work in math. This works, it probably works in social studies because they have a lot of flexibility. Probably works in ELA, but doesn't work for math. Boy,
And
I have some
what
converts, boy.
what high school is that?
Burlington Edison High School. So my high school, boy, they are sold.
The
But it
Tiger,
took a little while.
yeah, the Tigers.
Yes, Burlington Tigers. But it did. We're in year 4 with our leadership team, but year 4 with the leadership team, year 3 with the high school. But yeah, it took a good year for them, but they're sold now, and they're some of my biggest trainers. But you're right, it's hard for process classes to get around this at the beginning. But I'm so glad you're here because when you can get math and you can get high school, you can get anyone. So I'm so glad you're here. Boy, I love our high school friends. Science
Yeah,
was a little tricky too, but we drug them in and they're super excited now too.
well, I think you're right. So
And like some of you said, it's amazing how much some people are already doing, and just having them try that one more thing is amazing, right? But I think we got everybody. Did we miss anyone in sharing? I think we got everyone in sharing. Perfect. What a great diverse group. And I wrote down, as you guys were all talking, I wrote down some common things that you kept saying that I'm really excited about. That when we started 4 years ago at our high school, and now we're district wide, the biggest thing all of our teachers told us is not one more thing. So you are so right. Getting over the one more thing is super hard. And we're gonna talk about that every single session because we all know teachers work so hard. They really, really do. And the people that support them work so hard all the time. So coming and telling them and trying to be really upbeat with, I have a training for you, having them think of putting one more thing on their plate seems unbearable, right? We even had tears at one of our first meetings, right? Um, but the thing that I love is once you start to unpack what this is, it starts to release and give you time back, right? And that's the piece that when people can finally see that part, it's almost like it's sold itself. And so we're gonna keep talking about that piece as well. And I love how a bunch of you said, "Gosh, I know this is really hard to bring on board, and it's really hard to have people think it's one more thing, but it's so important because every kid deserves this, right?" We know how amazing it is for our SPED kids, but for every single kid, right? We see it lifting everyone. But we do have a lot of nervous teachers and we have a lot of resistance out there. So, how we bring this to them in a way that they feel supported and that they, and I don't want to say drink the Kool Aid, but they drink the Kool Aid with us where they can't unsee this and they can't imagine not trying something is what we get them to. And it's pretty special. It's pretty amazing, but it takes some really interesting professional learning and some really interesting coaching to make that happen, right? So I'm excited. Are you guys excited? Super excited. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, I'm super hopeful that you'll just get more and more comfortable with this group so that we can really have those hard conversations together. But what I want to tackle for a couple of minutes, because we've never worked together before, I have a document and I'm going to grab my link here. This is just a Google drawing, but it's easy for all of us to manipulate together. So jump in here. And I want us to just take a few minutes to think about collaboration norms together, because we are going to kind of ask ourselves to be a little vulnerable. And that's the only way we move forward and learn, right? And so maybe sharing some stories about things that maybe sharing that, hey, not really comfortable with this, or here, this is maybe something I'm really proud of. It's sometimes harder for teachers to share what they're proud of than to share weaknesses. But what I would love for you to do on this document, and this actually comes from one of Novak's books on just creating norms with students, is you can see if you jump in, are you guys able to actually move things around on here, grab something and make sure it's editable? So you should be able to grab a Post-it, and if you right click on it, or two-finger tap if you're on a Chromebook, you should be able to edit text and put some things in here. Yay, it works. So I want you to put at least 2 Post-its out. But what are those things when you're collaborating with people? What are those things in the go section that, hey, this really supports me in collaboration? Whether it's routines, whether it's timers, whatever it is, put at least 2 go things that you need to support you when you're collaborating, and then 2 pet peeves. Oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't happen when we collaborate. Let's get some pieces in here. And if you're on a device that's not letting you do this, if you can just throw it in the chat, I can put it up on the board for you. But let's take a couple minutes and go ahead and throw some things in here. And I'm the worst at checking time for myself. So I'm going to set us a timer for about.
Can you clarify one more time how it is to add Post-its and type in them?
Absolutely. So you just can click on any of the Post-its and you just drag them over. And then when you have the Post-it, you right click on it while you still have it selected, and you'll see an edit text, and then you can just type in it. Did that work okay? Brilliant. And this is my cheat since Google got away from Jamboard. I just use Google Drawings now and make templates and share them out. And I love how even though this isn't on the paper, I can use all this outside space to put all my stuff that then people can drag in, and then you can still print this out just like a piece of paper. So just a little tech edition there for you. And if you see somebody else's that you really love, you can grab one of these stars and star it too. Especially if it was something you were going to put, but then we don't have to have duplicates. All right, I'm going to give you a couple more minutes. Set a timer for 3 minutes. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and take a look at this now. Let's see, we've got good resources, different levels, and that's super important for your adults, right? It's just as important for our adults as it is for our students. So as we're thinking about our coaching, yep, let's remember that for them. Flexibility, mindfulness, perfect. Clear agenda. Oh my gosh, that's so me. I love the checklists. I have my things I'm marking off on my agenda. Love that. Success criteria. Getting concrete examples. Yes, we'll definitely have very specific examples and strategies. Timers. I love my timers. Be responsive. Be open-minded. Be engaged. Stay on topic and agenda. Perfect. So those are all our goes. And then our stops, no agenda, no goals, negativity, not able to reference materials. Perfect. Is there anything missing? I think that's a pretty good start. All right, thumbs up. Can we all agree that we can follow these norms and support each other? And people with cameras off, I'm imagining thumbs up. I know they are up. Oh, perfect. Look at that. Oh, very good. We got the little thumbs up emoji up there too. Perfect. All right, brilliant. And this is super powerful, we know, to do in our classrooms, to do with our teachers. We don't want to norm people to death. I know my high school teams will tell me that. But sometimes, especially when we see people not following those, it's a nice reminder. And I know with my high school crew, I'll also say, hey, gosh, if we're not able to follow our norms, how would you want someone to remind you? What would you want them to do to give you a signal, right? Sometimes it's a, hey, can I just get a, hey, kick me under the table, right? Or come over proximity. But we know a lot of our teachers, when we set up that relationship with them, just having that conversation will kind of remind people again, right? Because we know adults, just like students, we can break norms all the time and not even realize that. So having those pieces is really powerful. Oh, perfect. Yes, modeling is super important for me. So hopefully you're seeing that I'm trying to put a lot of UDL into this session as we talk about UDL. And you can grab this Google, just go and make a copy. You can use this yourself for any session you want. You can change the top up here. You can change any of these pieces, but you can keep all these, all the boxes. The big thing to remember on this is just making sure that when you share it, and you share anyone with the link, make them an editor, not a viewer, or they can't move anything around, right? So if you use this in one of your sessions, that's a big piece to remember. Just make sure everyone is an editor on that. And you can send that link out in your slideshow or on a QR code, but you can make an interactive anything organizer for everyone. So I love doing those pieces. Perfect. Thank you for participating in that. And I'm going to keep a copy of this. I have another copy of a non-changed one. So if you just want a fresh one, you just let me know, and I can get you a fresh one as well. And I have different organizers like that. You just let me know if that's helpful for you. Thank you for participating in that. It's super powerful. And now we're going to talk about outcomes. Okay. I really want to make sure you feel like, oh, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I'm going to put that on our site. I'm going to make sure everybody has access to a fresh one. No worries. So I really want you to get a chance to really unpack professional learning and coaching. And I've come up with these different stages we're going to slowly walk through together in this course where we can really consider either we're starting fresh with some professional learning, or we just want to reflect on some of the pieces that we're already doing. But it's a chance for you to really jump into, and I put them in what I call just stages and steps. But we're going to go through some parts, and I'm going to go through all these parts with you, but you're going to get a chance to really go through a pretty thorough process on how to look at your professional learning and your coaching that you provide. And here's just some of the pieces that we'll go through. And hopefully you'll see that it's very much intertwined with UDL and how you would actually design a lesson or how you would design a unit for your students. And it's just amazing how a learner is a learner, right? So those are the outcomes for you to really be able to dig into these pieces of design and have that chance to network and see what other people are doing. The resources that I have for you, I have the playbook that I shared, but I have this, of course, I have other digital resources as well. And like I said, if it's more powerful for you to print that out while we're together, that totally makes sense. I want you to have access however that makes sense for you. I also provided that early access for you so that you could print things out or look at things. On the website, you're also going to kind of get to preview and see what the next sessions are going to kind of look like. So that if you want to dig into some of the resources early and have a chance to really digest and jump into things, that's all going to be there for you. Because we know some learners, they want to see and be prepared and do some pre-learning for themselves. Other learners, they're totally fine with on the fly, give me stuff, right? But we know that some of our teachers are exactly the same. So when I have different professional learning, I will share out the slides early. I will let them know the goals. We try to preload things as much as possible. We use a website to house a lot of our things, but of course you can use your LMS. You can use a Google Classroom and you can have those things, but having a spot like a repository or a resource bank is super powerful. And we'll talk more about that later as well. But just having that space so people can get to things when they need them, kind of like an on-demand piece. And then, of course, like I said, I'm going to make sure this site is up and you'll be able to jump to this site when you like. But I'm going to go ahead and really quickly just jump to the site and just show you. Of course, the slides are there if you want any of the slides. Here, of course, is our norm, but under this, I'll put a blank one so that you have a blank one that you can get to. And I have the playbook here, and we're going to be jumping into this, but just know that even though you have view access, you guys know how to just come up and go to File, make a copy, so then you can actually interact with it digitally and type in there as well. So I just wanted you to make sure you had access for that piece. And then like stage 2 and stage 3, I have some of the elements there so that you could look into those sessions early ahead of time if you wanted to. I just want to make sure you recognize that, and I'll remind you about that again. Okay, any questions on the resources as we start with that? Okay, brilliant. Okay, now the big resource that I have that we're going to be tackling quite a bit is this playbook. And this is kind of where I've tried to put a lot of elements together, and it's organized like this. And I would love feedback as we keep going. You're just the second group that's seen this, and I've already gotten some feedback and I've already changed it. But basically, as I go through and provide professional learning, and I have 6 leadership teams that I work with that I support. So I give them this training that then they go to their buildings and they do training. And I help the leadership team at the high school and I do trainings there. So this is the piece where we have trained our trainers and supported them. So this is just a compilation of like the last 6 years of training trainers. So basically in stage 1, we go through just for coaching and professional learning, what are the goals and barriers? And really digging into that. And that's stage 1. And we just we have to really tackle that and have clarity around that. And then in stage 2, we talk about the when and how for coaching and professional learning and how we can kind of scaffold and organize that for ourselves. In stage 3, we talk about what's the actual content? What are those pieces that we're going to be sharing? And then what's the sequence? Do we have like an idea of when and what, how, right? When things should happen. And sometimes there is a really delicate sequence, and sometimes there isn't. It's just like in our classrooms, right? And then I kind of have a wrap-up piece where we really think about this continuum of what's next. How do we keep this momentum going? And then how to actually plan for real transformational change, because that's the whole basis of everything, right? That we're sharing UDL and inclusion with an idea that we're really making change all the way down to the classroom. So those are the different stages that go through in the playbook. Any questions on that so far? And hopefully you guys will just interrupt me if something doesn't make sense. All right. So of course there are stages and then there are steps. And within every stage, we go through these steps together. Okay, so I know this first part is kind of interesting, but the very first stage is goals and barriers, and then the very first step is goals and barriers. But I think it'll make sense as we kind of go through it, because for every single stage, we have to consider the goal and the barrier for each of those parts. So hopefully, it's kind of weird to think of goals for goals, but I think it'll make sense as we dig in. And then we do a prior knowledge activity together just for ourselves. We make learning and connections. We talk about next steps, and then we have reflection. So there's kind of these different pieces we go through in all of those areas. And I'm checking my time really quickly because I was going to give you a second just to, I was going to give you a couple minutes just to dig into the playbook, but we're a little behind time. So I'm going to skip that, knowing that all we're going to be doing is going through this playbook. So that's what that timer was for. But I do want to now actually jump in, and we're going to actually get started on stage 1, goals and barriers, and we're going to look at goals and barriers. All right. And we're also going to do a prior knowledge activity. And this is for you and it's grounding, but I'm hoping that you're seeing that the setup for this that I'm doing for you to organize yourself is some of the professional learning you'll actually do for your staff. And I know it'll make sense the more we kind of go through this. But let's go ahead and look for a second. I'm going to actually open up the playbook real quick. I'm gonna actually open up this one. Sorry, I get tab crazy. So when you're in this, you'll notice that these are hyperlinks, so it'll actually jump to the stage for you. Okay, and this one, if you only had this in paper, this would jump you back to the website. Okay, so we get past this first page. This is just kind of our table of contents. And then here's stage one. And basically in this stage one, where we really dig into our goals and barriers for professional learning, we have some goals here for ourselves. And so we can't at all think about our professional learning or our coaching unless we have goals for them, right? I mean, we could try some things out and we could kind of, but just like our any learning experience, right? Have you ever tried to pull off a learning experience with no goal in mind? Can you imagine how that might not work at all? So same thing with our coaching and our professional learning. We have to think about what our goals are. And it's super powerful, of course, for us to think of super short-term goals and then have those lofty little far out goals. So what we've done for our professional learning is we set up a 5-year goal. We told our staff, oh my gosh, we're going to stick with this UDL thing for 5 years. And then we backed it up, of course, with, okay, what do we need to accomplish in year one? Okay, well, we're going to start with our foundational elements, right? And I can share a little bit more about that. But coming up with really those lofty pieces, and then, okay, let's figure out our year and let's figure out our month, right? Going back and making those really attainable pieces. So I'm thinking about that piece for you. And then having some personal goals for yourself. Do you have some certain learning that you need to figure out? Is it, oh my gosh, I need to read this next book, so I'm a little bit further ahead of my group, or gosh, I'm going to make sure I do some classroom observations. What is that learning piece for you that you're going to do? Because you need to be parallel with your staff where you're always doing your learning as you're providing learning and support for them. And sometimes you'll figure out those professional goals for yourself as you start working the work. You'll realize, oh, I'm getting a lot of questions about co-teaching. I think I need to ramp that up. So those will add on or they'll change or they'll shift for you as you start working with people. But you might already have those for yourself right now. And then during this stage, we also think about what are those barriers? And you guys brought them up. You had some great ones right when you were sharing with, oh my gosh, how do I help people see this as not just one more thing? How do I make sure there are clear connections to the work that we're already doing? Gosh, I know I have nervous teachers. How do I work on that SEL just for my teachers and help them with that nervous piece? Oh, there's that resistance, right? So really articulating those barriers, because just like UDL for our students, if we can tackle those barriers before our learners come up against them, they have that much more potential to reach our goals. It's exactly the same, right? So be thinking about those. So this first piece that you're going to get to do, and you can go right in the organizer if you already have this in paper or you have this digitally. In a minute, I'm going to have you get a chance to make some notes for yourself. But I also want to show you this next one because I want to have you a chance to do both of these things. Prior knowledge activity. So this one, and this is super powerful to do with your staff. So whatever the learning is, we find some kind of prior knowledge question. And brain research, I love the brain research piece, but we know that if we don't make a connection for people to something they already know, the chances of them of learning this or retaining this is very minimal, right? So prior knowledge is huge. So after you think about your personal goals, I want you to think about a time that you made a goal for yourself, whether it was personal, whether it was a professional goal, maybe it was trying to eat more healthy, maybe it was saving money for a vacation, whatever it was. Think about what you were doing when you made that goal for yourself. What did you put in place? What made it a success or what made it a failure? What were important things you did along the way to meet that goal? So that's that prior knowledge piece. And I'm going to jump back to our slides. And so what I want you to do is now take a few minutes. You're going to get to start your notes. And you're, of course, going to do these after our session is done as well. But I want you to start your notes on your personal goal or that prior knowledge one. You can do the prior knowledge one first if you want. You can do the professional goals. But I'm going to give you some time just on your own now to work on those. And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. Are there any questions? All right, so I'm going to bring this back up so that I can actually get the timer to go. And I'm going to mute myself, but if you have a question, you can unmute or you can just put it in the chat so we can let everybody work. But let me know if you have a question, and I'm going to start our 5-minute timer with those two. Choose which one you want to do. See if you have time for notes for both, but 5 minutes, and then we are going to chat about this together. All right, go. All right, time's up. Show me, do you need more time? Are we ready to discuss? 2 more minutes? 2 more minutes sound okay for everybody? 2 more minutes. All right, ready to come back for discussion? Excellent, seeing some thumbs up. Oh, sorry, my silly. Okay, perfect. So I'd love to hear some share out now, and I'll call your name, but if you want to pass, I totally understand, but we'd love to hear from you. What did you set for goals for yourself? What did you discover as you were setting goals, as you were thinking about your prior knowledge? What do you wonder about now with those first two pieces? And we'll start with Karen, but you can pass, but we'd love to hear from you.
So for my personal goals, I said that I wanted to learn more about how UDL can be used in different grade levels and in different academic areas so I can help support staff in my district. Practical strategies for classroom teachers to utilize are what I want to focus on the most. And because I used to be an instructional coach for a year, and I found that if you don't have concrete examples to give people that they can start doing tomorrow, then they kind of shut down and it's like, okay, well, this is all theoretical. But if you've got it to show and it's worked for other people, then I've found it's a lot more useful. And then my barrier is going to be that I'm no longer in the classroom. And also, I was an elementary teacher, and so I'm going to have to generalize to a lot of different ages and academic areas. So in my role as a special education director, I work with, P12, ages 3 to 21, 22. And so I have to kind of put myself in the perspective of the teachers at all of those different grade levels and all those different academic areas.
Perfect. All right, I'm just taking notes. All right, brilliant. Michelle W.
Hi. I wrote down that I want to utilize the strategy as I map out all professional development for improving our current data literacy and our integration between our different content areas. I want to model UDL in all interactions with peers and influence others. And I want to utilize the strategy not just in professional development, but in meetings as well. I truly believe that it could alleviate the stress and help staff onboard and access change, especially when there's a lot of change going on. I want to be able to use UDL without using the word UDL because for some reason people are afraid of that term. And similarly, I want to have concrete examples so that people can see it does connect to me, it does connect to my grade level, it does connect to my subject area. And a strength that I identified is my ability to make the connections between different concepts and different strategies. And another strength is I'm placed in a lot of opportunities to interact with a lot of influential people. So I'm hoping to leverage that to help make change across the system.
Nice. Perfect. Julie.
Hi. So my goal is I just want to get more like comfortable and fluid and like just top of my brain kind of just have those UDL strategies because I get a lot of I'm involved in a lot of conversations where we're talking about a lesson or if I want to be able to be like, okay, you tell me the goal of the lesson and then just be able to kind of just do okay, let's break this down. I can do that now, but it takes me, I'm a little bit clunky. And so I think this will be great. I think I'll just be more, I can get more fluid with just more experience and more just more exposure to, again, with like Karen, just working with 3-year-olds to 22-year-olds, just having kind of that toolkit that spans all of those. And I also agree with Michelle W. I really want to make sure that when I'm doing PD, I really am modeling those UDL strategies, so they can latch onto those. And I think that's all I've got.
So powerful. Perfect. All right. Michelle S.
Hi, thanks. So short term, it's very similar to what Julie talked about, touched upon, maybe a little bit different in a way. It's just learning how to be more intentional with the guidance that I provide other teachers. We put together a series of professional learning for UDL for a school a year or two ago. And what I am now realizing that I didn't do was the backward planning of it. Like, what did we want the outcome to be? And then plan those steps intermittently, as you kind of touch upon with the second activity in prior knowledge. So there's that. And then there's also just really getting to understand the why of UDL. Like, I get it in my heart. I think knowing the teachers that I work with the resistance, they want to know, like, what's the research behind this? You know, how do we know that it actually works? And then long term is really learning how these practices can apply to all content areas for implementation that can be far and wide. Um, you know, and some of that might be somewhat for selfish reasons, like knowing how that could apply to art, for example. And then also learning how to provide access with limited resources and time. So just basically getting the best bang for your buck. You know, I know that there is accessibility that can be given, you know, for novels, for example, when you want them digitally accessible, or the audio version, but those things cost a lot of money, and not all districts have that money. And teachers are, you know, going into their pockets to pay for those things, and that shouldn't be what we have to do in order to provide support for students. Some of my barriers is that I feel like, I don't know, personally, I feel like I can be inconsistent sometimes, and maybe following through. And then also just another barrier is just not fully having the support or buy-in from the teachers and staffs and teacher and administrators that we work with as well.
Gotcha. Perfect. Darlene.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my video going, but it's not. So anyway,
It's all good. It's all good. We love your little person.
yeah,
Super cute.
I have a couple of dogs in the background, which is why I'm keeping the video and audio off because of random barks every once in a while. Anyway, so I actually have been really working with one of my SPED classrooms to do some UDL because we have some kids that really struggle with actual writing, using a variety of different tools. But we also have a couple in that room that trying to find the right motivation for engagement when we're doing things. We have an IEP tomorrow with one of the kiddos' family, and with the new tool we've introduced, all he does is add pictures and is playing with the graphics, and you can't really block anything, but
Oh,
the teacher's not consistent as well as far as enforcing, and the students also not always real willing. So I'm finding that as my own challenge to like, okay, find a way that I can engage this reluctant, disengaged student to learn when everybody else in the classroom has gotten really excited about the new things that we've implemented. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I think one of the barriers is that I'm only in the building a couple days a week.
that's tough.
And the teacher that I'm working with is also very, I would almost say afraid of technology. She's not
Aw.
confident. So when I scaffolded some things when I started things with them, I said, I know you can do this when I was showing her how to get back into it. And she goes, do you think I can? And so,
Oh,
um, um, it's a challenge, but it's been neat watching the reaction of most of the kids. I want to figure out how to pull in that one really reluctant learner to engage him better.
well, that's super tricky, and it can be a lot to uncover, unpack with a student, right? No, that's great.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Perfect. Brianna.
Hey, so I'm actually gonna pass, but
Okay.
because I'm very new to this and I'm just really
All good.
indulging in all the information that everyone's sharing. I'm taking lots of notes, and I would like to just get a little bit more adapted to what I'm learning more than sharing all the thoughts that I might have. We could be here all
All
night.
good. No, you are all good. Keep taking your notes.
Thank you.
Of course. Kyla.
So I would say my short-term goal is to kind of work more on the SEL for the teachers about like easing them into UDL and kind of taking away that fear that this is just something that we're going to add to their plates. And a barrier to that is that I'm only one person and our district seems to not quite have steps in place yet to kind of teach teachers about UDL. So that's what I have so far.
And that's plenty. Oh my goodness. That's perfect. All right. And Joan, I've got your note. Brilliant. All right. Perfect. And I've taken a bunch of notes as well. Thank you so much for sharing your goals, your prior knowledge ideas. And you're right. When you first start, there's just a lot to unpack for yourself and thinking of how you can bring those things on with your teachers. And I love the sharing of, hey, we did some stuff, but now I'm realizing some things I want to go back and try again. Um, and the why, I love it. And I have a bunch of stars next to practical strategies. Because teachers will only give you a little bit, right? If you go theory too long, they're not going to stay with you, right? And there's that definite balance of how do I help people see that UDL is research based, right? It's not just something I found on the back of the cereal box, right? It is really research based, enough theory to have that buy-in, but also the why. Super powerful. And we are going to talk about that for sure. There's definitely some lessons that I've learned on that one as well. So thank you so much for going through these pieces. That's super powerful. Thank you. So keep all those notes. And what I want to do is I want to jump back to the website real quickly because I want to show you a little bit more with what's next and what's coming up. But I also, let's let this refresh itself. I added the blank one down here. I saw that request come up a bit. So all you need to do to get access to this one is get your little expand button right there where it'll open it up. And so you'll get this to open and just say open with Google Drawing when it comes up. And then on this one, you'll have only view access to this. But remember, all you do is just make a copy and then you can go in and change and make it however you want. And of course, change titles for yourself and change all the little icons and all those things. But that's in there on the website now so that you can use this however you like. Okay, I want to make sure you saw that. All right. Perfect. but I do want to give you a minute. Remember, our next session we're going to be together is on December 3rd, again at 4 p.m. And what we're going to do during our session 2 is we're going to dig more into stage 1. And I want to give you a little bit of a preview. And not, I mean, I know it says homework, but not necessarily homework. It's more that I want you to feel comfortable coming into that next session and see where we're going to be. So I'm going to jump back into our playbook, and we had a chance, and you can come back in here and flesh this out a little bit more. This is just for you. You're not turning anything into me or into anyone else. If you want to go back and make a few more notes for yourself around personal goals, if you want to kind of dig into the prior knowledge piece for yourself a little bit, please think about that and with your connections. But and then I love how with the personal goals, people were really thinking about their own strengths and barriers, because barriers are huge with professional learning. And we are going to keep digging into this in stage 1. And I want you to think about, sometimes our districts have their own history, right? We have, and I know some of you said UDL is a bad word in your district now, right? For us, it was deeper learning. That one became a really bad word, right? And then RTI became a really bad word. And so you have to be careful with the language that you use in some districts, right? There's triggers. And we know that there are just barriers in general with professional learning for adults. And then there's ones that are very institutionalized in our own location. So if you're brand new to your position, um, leaning on some of those people. Hopefully, you have a mentor or people that you can trust in that district so you can hear a little bit of the history, right? Find out some of those trigger words and hear some of those things that have been going on, because that can really be helpful for you to have some insight on those pieces. So if there are other barrier pieces that you want to bring back up, and have those, because like I said, if you can think of ways or think of things that you know are going to come up, and having those pieces and having those ideas of how to combat that, and how to support people, it's going to be super powerful for you. Just like we have with our students, it's addressing those barriers, and we're going to dig more into that as we go. And thanks for that prior knowledge piece. Thinking about how goal setting works for you is a great connection. When we come back together in December, the next piece we're going to be doing is digging into goals and barriers with some learning and connection activities. So in this one, we're going to dig more into, and I have resources here that you could jump into. We're going to jump into what UDL says about developing goals. And I know this one really is developing goals for learners, but it's going to be amazing how much it's going to really tie into your professional learning. So if you want to do, I'm going to give you time during our session to kind of look at these, but I want you to have a chance to kind of read some things ahead of time. This is this document is right here on the website. I just saw Joan. Did you get that website link, Joan? It's right. I'll put it back in again. I have everything on the website here. Oh, that's the one you printed. Yes. So, we're gonna, there's 3 big resources on this one. This one is an amazing one. It's all about planning PD with UDL in mind. So you might want to do some pre-reading. Like I said, I'm going to give you a little bit of time, but not enough time to really read the whole thing. I hope that makes sense, right? Because we wouldn't want to spend our whole time together just reading documents. So there are 3 resources that I love. And then just my resource bank, just this website. I'm going to show you, did you guys notice the menu over here on the side? This is actually my whole UDL resource bank that I use with my whole district. And so I just put yours as one of the pages, but these are all the resources that I actually share with my staff as I do professional learning. So I'm going to show you some of these resources and jump into them as we do our session together. But one of the big things, and I'll probably say this several times because it was such a big lesson learned for me, is that as I was putting all my resources together, I started with like shared folders and things. It just became a mess, right? I don't know if you're a Microsoft district and you try to use shared folders and things. I couldn't find my documents. I couldn't find my videos that I liked. So putting everything on a website really made things super easy for me. So whatever your method is of putting your resources together and having a share out plan, figure that out for yourself. But this is what we use in Burlington. It's just a website. So you'll see, and I'll mention some of these. I have some of my book study ones that we've done, and if you've ever done one of these sessions with me, we leave these book studies on here. And so our page is just one of the pages that's attached to this whole resource bank. So you have access to go look at those. And during our course together, I'll be jumping into these pages to show you how I use them and what I have in here. Okay. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that, because as you look at some of the resources, this one actually takes you to one of the pages that's all about firm and flexible goals. And it's under the foundational beliefs of UDL. So you'll see just in goal setting, just some of the pieces that we use to support our teachers and have them learn what those goals are all about. So that's one of the resources in here. And so when we come back together, we're going to look at some of those. We're going to look at some of the big ideas that come out of those. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that those are some of the pieces that we will be digging into. And I'll give you a little bit of time, like I said, during that session to kind of look at them. Okay, but I wanted to make sure you saw those. And so we'll see, but I'm hoping we can tackle in the next session learning connections and getting through some connections and finishing up stage 1 together. I hope. We'll see. And there might be some pieces that we have to do kind of quickly. But if you want to take a peek at just the other parts of stage 1, of course, if you want to like throw notes in there and do whatever you like, but know that we're going to walk through those parts together, and that'll be our next session. That'll be our next piece together. But I also do want to give you time. I'm very, very big on feedback. And one of the biggest changes that happened for me with professional learning is asking adult learners for feedback. And I do this in every single session that I do. And it was kind of funny because I used to do feedback, and I would just kind of ask people, but then I never really did anything with it. But now every single session when I start, I tell the staff, hey, here's what you told me, and here's what I'm doing differently now. So I do have a feedback link that I'm going to send you. Please, please. I'm going to give it to you now so you can even do it while we're talking. But when I first started with the high school and we did feedback with them, we had 40% felt that PD met their needs. Did I give you guys the right link? Does that actually go into a feedback form? Yes. About 40% of them said that sessions were meeting their needs, that our professional learning was meaningful, and that was pretty dismal. But they were really honest. At least they were honest with us, right? And so we started a really intentional feedback loop with, you can see, we can just look at the questions because I use the same questions. If I can bring up, oh, I just had it open. We asked them every single time, did we meet our session goals? Here's what they were, right? If you answered that we didn't, tell me why. How can we help make the session better? And then we always ask, what should we keep doing? What should we change? And is there anything more you want to share? And with our very next session, we said, hey, gosh, you told us we only met our goal. 50% of you said we met our goal. And this is why. So here's what we're going to change based on what you said. And you're going to tell us, right? You let us know if we're if these sessions are meeting your needs. And it also, for our team that we're actually delivering PD, and that it's kind of really hard to stand up in front of your peers, right? That can be really tough. And so really focusing on the feedback coming from the staff, and actually we can't make things better if they don't help us make things better, was the big shift that we made. And the more times we shared that feedback loop with them, we are now at 100% that our high school staff believes that the PD is meeting their needs, that they feel listened to. And it did take us the better part of that first year to get to that, to get to those 100%. But every single time we ask them, and closing that feedback loop of here's what you said and here's what we're going to change or here's what we're going to keep. And we get a lot of we get a lot of comments about, oh, you really did change that. You really did listen, right? So that is super powerful. And it's actually one of the strategies that we now do as a whole building in engagement. We pick high leverage strategies for every principal. And so one of our high leverage strategies for engagement is learner feedback. And so every single department, every single class, they have a plan for learner feedback. And they have a feedback loop and they share with their departments. And we even have it down in our grade schools. So this is one of those where when we think about strategies that work for certain subjects or certain ages, there are strategies that literally work for every single learner. Now, how you do it, of course, can be very different. I might not use a Google form with kindergartners, but I can sure use feedback with them, right? And it has that same power. So that's that part that's so amazing. So please take a minute to fill out that feedback form for me. Let me know how I can make sure our next session is meeting everybody's needs. I had a wonderful time working with you guys. This is really amazing that you are after school, after a full day, willing to give and willing to show up and willing to be vulnerable. Thank you so much. I've really appreciated working with you and I can't wait. You have my email address if you have questions before we meet. If you need anything, let me know. I love talking about UDL. It is one of my favorite things. And if there's a strategy I know we had, now I can't remember who said it. Was it Darlene that's working on the student and working on engagement? If you have barriers or different things you're tackling, send me notes. I would love to network and just co-plan with you or give some ideas or lessons learned. I have a lot of SPED friends that I work with at my high school. I have a lot of people that I can network with too, but really enjoyed working with everyone and I can't wait to see you next month. I'll stay on till 5:30 if you have any questions, but I want to make sure you had plenty of time to fill out the feedback. And I will see you guys next month. Thank you so much. This is great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Get some sleep, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And we can go ahead and stop recording.